The recent record-breaking warm temperatures had Ottawans trading their winter gear for spring clothing early this year. Many are venturing outdoors to take advantage of this peculiar warmer weather. But what do milder and shorter winters mean for Ottawa's major outdoor festivals? Ted Manning is the president of Tourisk, an international firm that advises on sustainable tourism. He says that popular outdoor tourist events like the Canadian Tulip Festival and Winterlude could be affected by climate change.
It's very clear that these are vulnerable events, simply because you have to have a certain temperature or precipitation regime at a certain point in the year. This year, the tulips are likely to be very early, and many of the events have been scheduled for much later, for things like skating on the canal. It's totally dependent on having a temperature that's well below freezing for a good part of the year. So whatever happens to the climate, it's likely to have some repercussions on the length of the season.
Jantine Van Krechten of Ottawa Tourism agrees, saying programming of outdoor festivals has already taken climate into account, making events less weather dependent.
It does change, the climate and the trends do change, and so I think the programming has to keep up with that. So the tulips will still be here whenever they bloom, but there's other programming around the history of the tulips, the friendship between nations, the international pavilion. There are other ways to celebrate that are more evergreen, if you will, that can happen regardless of the weather. And we've seen that with Winterlude as well. Winterlude is a great winter festival in Ottawa each year that's centered around winter activities. But they've introduced other programming, a dining series, other performances that take place regardless of whether the Rideau Canal Skateway is open for skating. The new Rink of Dreams is a great new addition that is less weather dependent than the outdoor skateway. So there's ways of still having fun and still incorporating those weather dependent elements, but broadening the festival as a whole to not be so dependent on the weather.
In 2005, the NCC commissioned the University of Waterloo to conduct a study on the effects of climate change on Ottawa tourism events. The study includes projections about future climatic changes based on 3 time periods: the 2020s, the 2050s, and the 2080s.
What it does is it looks at what you have to do to make things less vulnerable. Now, what does that really mean? Well, what it means is planting tulips that don't all come out at the same time, so you spread your risk. What it means is looking at putting events on that are not all dependent totally on the weather. You don't schedule just snowball fights and skating, you have indoor events. Obviously, some events are going to be very, very difficult to schedule, but that's always been a problem.
The National Capital Commission has already started weatherproofing events as part of a new business model, but says it's not planning to make changes to the skateway in the near future due to fluctuating temperatures.
The NCC's been planning Winterlude for more than 34 years now, and if there's one thing we can say about the weather is that it's totally unpredictable. Canadian winters, that's part of their charm, is that it gives us something to talk about. You never know what you're going to expect. So over the 34 years, we've come into a lot of knowledge about the weather, and into the future, we're going to try and apply that, and it's difficult to predict what's coming. However, we've evolved and changed over the years as a result of the changing climate conditions.
Although there is a trend towards warmer and shorter winters, the NCC seems confident Ottawa's staple tourist attractions won't be harmed. For Capital News Online, I'm Olivia Nethi Raja.